day, everyone. Me and my friends today are going to expand or expound the standard time system by discussing history, different standard time, time zone, time conversion, and AM and PM, and the difference between 12-hour and 24-hour. So now, Jen is going to start it with history.
During the 19th century, scheduled steamships and trains required standardization in the industrialized world. Let's start with Great Britain. A standardized time system was first used by the British Railways on December 1st, year 1847, when they switched from local mean time, which varied from place to place, to Greenwich Mean Time, or also known as Coordinated Universal Time. The original idea was credited to Dr. William Hyde Wollaston and was popularized by Abraham Follett Austin. The vast majority of Great Britain's public clocks were standardized to GMT by year 1855. Until 1883, the standard time in time zone was instituted in the United States and Canada by the railroads on November 18th, year 1883. Prior to that, time of day was a local matter. Most cities and towns used some form of local solar time maintained by a well-known clock on a church steeple or, for example, or a jeweler's window. The first man in the United States to sense the growing need for time standardization was an amateur astronomer, William Lambert, who as early as 1809 presented to Congress an establishment for time meridian. This was not adopted, nor was the initial suggestion of Charles Dowd of Saratoga Springs, New York, in year 1870. Charles Dowd revised his proposal in year 1872, and it was adopted virtually unchanged by the United States and Canadian Railways 11 years later. Just an additional information. About 1863, Charles Dowd first proposed time zones for United States Railways to teenage girl whom he was teaching. He was a co-principal at the time. In year 1869, he presented his idea to committee railway superintendents in New York. As a result, in year 1870, he published a pamphlet entitled A System of National Time for Railroads, wherein he proposed 4 time zones, each 15 degrees wide. The time being away is 1 hour different from the next, named Washington, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd hours. The use of standard time zone gradually increased because of its obvious practical advantages for communication and travel. The standard time zone was established by the United States law with the Standard Time Act of 1918 enacted on March 19. Congress adopted the standard time zone based on those set up by the railroads and gave the responsibility to make any changes in time zone to Interstate Commerce Commission, the only federal transportation agency at the time. Now let's move on to discuss the 3 standard time we have today. We have the Coordinated Universal Time, Eastern Standard Time, and Pacific Standard Time. Let's start with Coordinated Universal Time. Coordinated Universal Time. This is a time standard commonly used across the world. The world's timing centers have agreed to keep their scales closely synchronized. Universal Time started in year 1884, when it was created at the International Meridian Conference. This is the basis for the 24-hour time zone system we know today. In year 1960, the International Radio Consultative Committee formalized the concept of UTC, and it was put into practice a year after. The name Coordinated Universal Time was officially adopted in year 1967. Eastern Standard Time, it is 5 hours behind the Coordinated Universal Time, and this time zone is in use during the Standard Time in North America, Caribbean, and Central America. Last but not the least is the Pacific Standard Time. It is 8 hours behind the Coordinated Universal Time, and this time zone is in use during Standard Time in North America.
Are you curious about our time zone? Let me discuss informations or facts about time zone. A time zone is a region of the globe that observes a uniform standard time for legal, commercial, and social purposes. Time zones tend to follow the boundaries of countries and their subdivisions because it is convenient for areas in close commercial or other communication to keep the same time. Most of the time zones on land are offset from Coordinated Universal Time, or which we call UTC, by a whole number of hours, and a few zones are offset by 30 to 45 minutes. Some higher latitude and temperate zone countries use daily light saving time for part of the year, typically by adjusting local time by an hour. Many land zones are skewed toward the west of the corresponding nautical time. This also creates a permanent daylight saving time effect. What about our world time zone? The first known person to conceive of a world time system of time zone was the Italian mathematician Chirocco Filipponi. He introduced the idea in his book Miranda, published in 1858. He proposed 24-hourly time zones, which he called longitudinal days. The first centered on the meridian of Rome. He also proposed a universal time to be used in astronomy and telegraphy. But his book attracted no attention until long after this month. Today, all nations use standard time zones for secular purposes, but they do not all apply the concept as originally conceived. Newfoundland, India, Iran, Afghanistan, Myanmar, Sri Lanka have our deviations from standard time. And some nations such as Nepal and some Zealand use quarter-hour deviations. Some countries such as China and India use a single time zone, even though the extent of their territory far exceeds 515 degrees of longitudinal. Russia is traditionally divided into 11 time zones, but in 2011, the number was reduced to 9. Then, President Medvedev said that the time that he would like to see even fewer in place. Still in 2014, the two removed time zones were restained, making them 11 again. What about our time conversion? Some of you might confuse how to convert time in different places. There is difference of 5 hours between Greenwich Mean Time and Eastern Standard Time, and the difference of 8 hours between Mean Time and Pacific Standard Time. In timing a radiogram, it is usually done in 24-hour time system. The hours for the entire day are counted written from 0 to 24 hours, starting at midnight. These calculations become more complicated near a daylight saving boundary. The table, the time of day by zone, gives an overview on the time relations between different zones. Show the table over here.
The origin of 24-hour period time can be traced back at least 4,000 years ago to the Babylonians and Egyptians, or even further back in time. The Babylonians and Egyptians divided the array of stars into 12 sections that appeared at night. For example, the star Procyon might rise shortly after sunset, followed by an hour later by the star Sirius. This defined a heavenly time. Although different groups of stars can be used to cope up with the slow pace of the night sky during the year. Daylight hours were divided into 12 to match. 2 sets of 12 is 12 hours, hence it is the hour of the day. While on the Romans, they inherited the 24-hour day from the Egyptians via the Greeks. 12 hours of daylight followed by 12 hours of night, with hours of variable length depending on the time of the year. They started counting from sunrise. 1 hour is equals to prima. So hour 3, Persia, was mid-morning. Hour 6, Sexta, was midday. And hour 9, Nan, was mid-afternoon. So why do other countries use 12-hour system? Both the 24-hour time system, 1 to 24, as used in Italy, and double 12 system, 1 to 12, then 1 to 12 again, as used in England and Northern Europe, can be displayed on a 24-hour dial. So why did the 12-hour dial with the added ambiguity of AM and PM become popular and eventually dominate for general purposes public clocks at least between 1,400 and 1,600. Two 12-hour periods. The 12-hour system divides the 24-hour of the day into two periods lasting 12 hours each. The first 12 hours period is designated as AM. It runs from midnight to noon. The second period marked PM covers the 12-hour from noon to. The abbreviation AM and PM derive from Latin, which is AM antemeridium, and PM, which is post-meridium.
We live in a world governed by time, from the tiniest of cells to the distance of stars. Our universe is subject to the beat of a constant clock. And because time is everywhere, we think we know it. We know that it is regular and move in one direction. We know that it is universal and eternal. And we know that it never, ever stands still.